My father, Sir Nicholas Winton, he's probably best known for 3 minutes of YouTube clips that go viral from time to time when he rescued some children from Prague before the Second World War on the Kinder transport. And in That's Life, he's confronted by some of the children he saved now in their 50s, and they all stand up. And it's a very moving piece of film, and it seems to capture people's imagination. It's also a great story. It's a great story about, what one person can accomplish if they set their mind to it.
Welcome to the Wisdom Stories. I'm Christy Adams, and I'm here today with Nick Winton. Nick, you've been in a school today. What have you been doing? What have you told them?
Yeah, my fifth career, which I just started at the age of 72, is telling my father's story and using it as an example of what people can become in their lives if they set their minds to it.
And who was your father?
My father, Sir Nicholas Winton, he's probably best known for 3 minutes of YouTube clips that go viral from time to time when he rescued some children from Prague before the Second World War.
How old was he when he did this, and how old were the children, and how many of them were there?
Oh, well, he was, I have to get my maths right, I think he was 29. It was in 1939 he did most of the work. He was 29, he was a stockbroker. He went to Prague and saw the refugees escaping from Hitler. Not all Jews, but mostly, and desperate to get their children out. So he decided he needed to do something about it. And in the course of January, when he started, till end of August, he rescued 669 children and had the largest train that he was trying to get out of Prague with 250 children ready to go. So just to put it in perspective and why it makes such a great story, 250 children means 250 immigration visas from the British government. It means 250 families who said they'd take a child who would be ready to receive them on Liverpool Street Station. It means 250 visas from the Gestapo in Prague to let them out of the country, and 250 guarantors who would pay money to have them repatriated at the end of the problem, of £50, which in today's money is about £4,500 per child. So he had to organise all of that, and he was working on the 9th train for the 1st of September, and at 4:45 in the morning, Hitler's army marched into Poland. It was the trigger for the outbreak of war. The German borders were closed, the train never left the station, and almost every one of those children was murdered in the Holocaust. And whenever he talked about the subject, he couldn't help but reflecting on those 250 that he didn't save. And you can imagine, I mean, if he'd worked an extra hour a day or an extra weekend or that day he had off, or if that train had left 1 day sooner, 2 days sooner, those children would be alive, and it haunted him.
Wow.
So the story is, every day each one of us has an impact on the world. And sometimes it's significant, like this particular project. I mean, it was a 9-month project, but it had a sort of rather dramatic outcome. But a lot of us, we get involved in doing things every day, and we impact the world every day. Maybe just by smiling at somebody. And, to us it's nothing. But to them, you have no idea the impact it may have made on somebody.
That's
literally
amazing.
It might be the difference between life and death for somebody, and we don't think of it as anything. And we also impact the world when we choose not to act. And these are messages that I think resonate with younger people, because they're still trying to work out what sort of people they're going to grow into as adults, and giving them new material of, this isn't something you get from the careers master, or, it's a whole new level of thinking about what's the world and what's my place in it.
And so when your father was in Prague, he was there on business, or he was there visiting somebody, or why was he there in the first place?
Fantastic question. He was very interested in current affairs, and he talked a lot with people. One of them, Martin Blake, was a schoolmaster at Westminster School, and he and Martin, not only did they talk politics, but he would go skiing with Martin at Christmas, because Martin would take some of the kids from Westminster School on a trip, and Pa liked skiing, so Pa would go along. I think he got a free trip, I suspect, a free trip for looking after some of the kids. And this year Martin said, I'm in Prague and I've seen something that you need to come and have a look at. And the skiing trip's off this year, so he went over and had a look, and he went around some of the refugee camps and he was just appalled. He just couldn't believe that. I mean, you see some newsreel footage of what it must have been like, but people camping under canvas in Central European winter, it must have been bitterly cold. And they were desperate, you know, driven out of Germany. He spoke fluent German because his parents were German Jews. His name at the time was Wertheimer. So, you know, he would have known what was going on and had a much greater feel, I think, than the British government, because he was convinced that we were going to go to war with Germany, and the British government thought we wouldn't.
So he had quite a lot of sort of visionary and foresight. So it was obviously close, and it felt a big deal for him personally, but also he was quite a strategist, wasn't he? He did all that organisation and...
Yeah, he left Stowe, his school, without any great academic achievement, but clearly he developed some quite useful skills because he was trained in banking in Germany. I find the story is just, you couldn't make it up. He was trained in banking in Germany in 1930 and 31.
Ah, okay.
So that was the year after the Wall Street crash, in a country that has just suffered from hyperinflation, and that's where he goes to learn about money. I thought it was just astonishing. The unemployment rate in Germany was 30% after the Wall Street crash, so that means 1 in 3 families had no income. And he would have seen that. And he saw the rise of the Hitler Youth. And, you know, with this sort of extended awareness of, you know, his family history in Germany, I think he was much more cognizant, much more sensitive to the way things were unfolding than maybe the British government. And a bit like, you know, it's sad, but the echoes of what's going on today in Ukraine are just uncanny. You know, the playbook is almost the same with the names changed. And I think he was just much more concerned that, you know, Hitler had even published pamphlets on his intentions for Europe. You know, spring of 1938, he's going to take over Austria. Autumn of 1938, he's going to take over Czechoslovakia. Well, he didn't in autumn, but we gave him the Sudetenland. I mean, you know, and then it was going to be Hungary and Poland and, you know, working his way around Europe. It was published, so, you know, a bit like what we see in Russia trying to recreate the Soviet Union. He was under no illusion about what he thought was going to happen and felt that it was really urgent. If something was going to be done, it was now. And I think that's probably what's more important. It's not whether it was, you know, the politics of the time. It was, there was a need, and he said, I'm going to do something. And again, you know, when I give talks, I say, you know, you sometimes hear people say, that's not right, they should do something about it. And I say, well, who's they? And what do you expect them to do? And I tell them what they doing something about it looks like. I say, why don't you get some mates together and you do something about it?
But your father was only 29 when he did this. He was, is that right? He was 29 years old.
Yeah, you're being ageist.
No, I'm just really interested. So
yeah,
it wasn't,
he was a young man.
He was a young man.
Single man.
Who basically threw everything of his energies and his time to say, actually, I'm going to make a difference.
Yeah, he upset his boss at the stock exchange by extending his holiday without permission in Prague to try and work out what needed to be done, and then he came back to London. And the stock exchange closed at 3:30, so he had all afternoon and evening and weekends to work on this as a project, and he worked on it right the way through till 1st of September, and then he couldn't do any more.
Wow.
So he got on with his life and did other things.
So did you grow up knowing this story, or did you find it out at the same time as everybody else did in the I didn't know this. This is really interesting.
He was asked, Nicky, why did you keep it a secret? He said, I didn't keep it a secret. I just didn't talk about it. You know, for him it was one of many things he'd done, and, you know, I guess if somebody had asked him specifically, he would have talked about it, but it's not the sort of thing that comes up over a Sunday lunch at home.
No, I guess not.
And it was only when the scrapbook that he was trying to find a home for, you know, he became late 70s decluttering. People I understand it's a thing. They even make TV programs about it. And
try not to get into it yourself.
so he had all this stuff, including a scrapbook that one of the people had put together of all of the work, all of the people they were connected with, all the letters and the, you know, the lists and everything. And he thought it was too important to throw away. And it ended up with a Holocaust researcher. So that's how it came to light. And then ultimately, the BBC and That's Life. And again, in schools, I have to remind people that when this story broke in 1988, there were 4 TV channels. BBC One was the preeminent one, and there was this magazine programme called That's Life, which had a segment on dogs in tutus or talking cat, whatever it was, there'd be some little thing. And the presenter, Esther Ranson, is Jewish. It must have piqued her interest when she saw this article in the Sunday Mirror. And so she put this surprise together. And it took my father 10 years to forgive her for setting him up like that, because, you know...
Were they friends before
No.
that? They didn't know each other?
No. No, he was maybe angry is not quite the right word, but he was very... he found it very difficult because he wasn't an emotional man. You know, when you see him wiping away a tear, you know, that's almost the equivalent of a breakdown for somebody who's been taught never to show emotion. And he did that on live TV. I mean, really.
It's quite a shock. It must have been a shock for your extended family as well. If they didn't if you didn't know, then your aunts and uncles.
But he was like that. I mean, he didn't talk about things, not because he wanted to keep them secret, but for instance, one New Year, I was in the Cotswold in a hotel with a girlfriend, reading the paper at breakfast, you know, Eggs Benedict, and having a great time on this time off for a change. And I, for some reason, reading the New Year's Honours list, that's my father's name. What's it doing here? So I phoned him up and I said, Dad, I've just seen your name in the... Oh, yeah, he said. I said, well, why didn't you tell us? Oh, he said, they asked us not to talk about it. Yeah, but journalists maybe, but family. But that was like, you know, it's like, didn't mean anything really to him. So, you know, it's just interesting, a different milieu, a different life, you know, when today, again, I say in schools, you know, there are people who want to be, I think they call them influencers, who want to be celebrities without actually doing anything. You know, they do a channel on whatever it is, how to put nail polish on or hair curl, whatever it is. And he did things that were more significant and didn't really want anybody... That's not why he did it.
He did it because it was the right thing to do.
It was the right thing to do.
Not because he was looking for recognition.
It was sort of a thread that ran through his life.
And so he's a very humble man, actually, in that sense, wasn't he? There's a lot of humility, and he wasn't looking for fame, was he?
No, okay. No, he wasn't. I struggle with the word humble because it implies that he was doing something, and he wasn't. He was just being Nicky, just being Pa.
Amazing.
On to the next thing. And there was another thing, and then another thing. It was just a thread that ran all the way through his life. In fact, one of the things I do in my talks is I read an extract from a letter he wrote to a newspaper in 1939, trying to get support, trying to get families to take children, trying to get guarantors to pledge money, trying to raise money for the trains. And in it, he describes what he calls active goodness, the concept of active goodness. And to be a good person, in his view, you have to do something. You have to find somebody and help them. Just sitting on a couch not being bad doesn't make you a good person. To be a good person, you have to find somebody who needs help and help them. And I guess, you know, in preparing for today, one of the things I was reflecting on is the concept of charity in its pure sense, of not giving money to an organisation, but finding somebody who needs support and then doing something for them. And that was his nature, and he loved it.
It was just treating a neighbour as you would yourself. It's a generosity.
And a little bit more than that, because in one way or another, we're all neighbours.
Exactly. Yeah, that's very true. And I think, and in recent times, we've had a culture which has basically moved towards, so if you think of the 30s and 40s to, you know, today, it's much more me-focused and I, rather than we.
So true.
before, if we look at the Second World War, actually what people were doing was helping each other out. I remember a story of my grandfather was killed as a chaplain in France in the Second World War, and as a result, my grandmother had 2 very young children and really didn't have any money, but there were a group of women called the Young Wives, and they retained their young wives status until they were in their 60s. They maintained this group all the way through.
Yeah.
But the Young Wives supplied her with food and clothing and anything that she needed, and they told her, oh, my daughter's grown out of this, or we've had too much, would you take it off our hands and do us a favour?
Yeah.
And there was this sense of we are a group and we help each other out.
See, that's what we're missing at the moment. At the moment, I pointed out this example of they should do something about it. We should. It's our responsibility for ourselves and our community. Every time we ask them to do it, we give away our power. Now somebody else's, it's their responsibility. And why do we choose to do that? Why don't we group together and support each other? I mean, if we did, half the things that the government and local authority do wouldn't be needed. We could do it for each other. And the few that do fall through the cracks, then there would be more money and more resources for them.
Interesting. And so in your work life, have you done a lot with things with communities, or was your work life like your father's in the finance? Where you said you've had 5 iterations of careers, so I'm interested to know.
None of them not really planned. A lot of it happened. I mean, partly I had a really successful business pioneering new technology, which collapsed after the crash of '89. I was trying to sell the business after that, and then had a brain tumour and told I wouldn't live more than a few years, so don't worry about a pension.
And so I've had a number of
unexpected changes of direction. Yeah, well, that is a double-edged sword, because I was told by the surgeon, don't worry about a pension, you won't need one. So I didn't, and I haven't. And now I'm 70-something thinking, oh, I haven't got a pension. I mean, I joke, but I was asked a question by somebody at the school today. What would you change in your life? And I looked back on my life and I thought, there are some things that have gone catastrophically wrong, but I wouldn't change them, because in their own way, each thing that has happened to me has helped make me what I am today, where I am today, and I like that. And if I changed it, I wouldn't be where I am today. I mean, who knows where I'd be, but why would I change it? And actually, some of the greatest things in my life have come from some of the worst situations. Now, absolutely don't take that to mean that I'm looking forward to a catastrophe.
You said you had a brain tumour?
Yeah.
So that must have been a very challenging time. How did you...
I was shocked. I said something absolutely... I mean, I can't believe I said it. It was so bizarre. When my mum came to see me in Charing Cross Hospital just before the operation, I said something like, but my brain's my favourite organ. Oh God, I didn't really say that, did I? But, it sort of haunted me. But, I've been always very interested, intellectual. I love problems. I love science. I studied science. And the thought that, I might have someone digging around in my head and I'm a complete vegetable terrified me.
Very scary.
And also I know I'm projecting my feelings on what I think other people think, but I think often people must think if you've had a brain operation, he's not all there, He used to be fine, but, and he used to be. And I thought, God, is that going to be me? And so after I had the operation and I was mobile again, I blagged my way onto an MBA at Imperial College without a first degree, but managed to persuade them that I had sufficient experience in business, having run my own company for 10 or 15 years, to be a good candidate. And I graduated one of only 2 out of 150 with honours. And I reckoned they wouldn't have done that if there was some problem. So that sort of gave me confidence that maybe my brain was still working.
Must have been working very well if you got that kind of result.
Well enough. So, you can't all be serious about it. I mean, I could joke with one of the secretaries who, from time to time, really, I struggled with saying if she wasn't careful, I'd give her a piece of my mind. It's in the jar on my office. No, I'm joking. But you have to treat some of these things with a bit of humour, otherwise you'd end up crying.
It's true, it's true. So one of the things that I've been looking at recently is the paintings in the House of Lords in the robing room, and the virtues that the knights of old used to basically hold to as key pillars in good leadership. And I just wondered if there's any that you particularly think are really important that we could do with restoring in our country. So would generosity or hospitality or courtesy or mercy, do you think any of these are something that we...
I am uncomfortable about the way democracy is going. And I know this is a bit tangential,
go ahead.
but
interesting.
People talk a lot about their rights at the moment. I feel, I'm entitled, and there's all this expectation of what they're entitled to. But living with my father, and to a certain extent, by osmosis, absorbing some of the values and principles that he lived by, he would feel that what comes first are responsibilities. And actually, if you unpack it, you can't have rights without responsibilities. I mean, in an anarchic society, there wouldn't be any rights. So first of all, we have responsibility to each other, or to follow the rules, or there are responsibilities first, and then we earn the right to be able to whatever. And I feel that there's something in this about our commitment to our community. And I'm not sure what word you would use to express it, but there's something there about we need to give before we can take. It doesn't. Nobody's got a magic money tree where all this bountiful goodness falls off the wall and we can just help ourselves. We have to create it, firstly for ourselves, but then for each other, and how we share out that, whatever it is. I feel that we could be more kinder, more generous, more charitable to our, however you define our community. Community these days doesn't just mean the street. Now community means, right across the world with, the FaceTime calls and, the way I've got friends all over the world, and I would, if one of them said I've got a problem, I would drop everything and help them in whatever way I could that was needed. And I get a sense that, that's not quite so common these days.
So that sort of community, do you think, do you see that within your community where you live now, that there is people helping each other?
Absolutely. But it doesn't happen by accident.
It's intentional.
Yeah, it usually needs somebody to say, I think we should, a leader who starts it, and then people will be, oh, that's a great idea, and let's make a WhatsApp group, and if somebody has a problem, then we can, but small things can make such a big difference.
There's a book that Rabbi Jonathan Sachs wrote on morality, and he talks about this very thing, that it's not I, it's we, and therefore that's where we find our sense of community, our sense of belonging, our sense of helping somebody else is actually, it helps us.
And of course, most of the ideas that I've been talking about aren't new. They've been around since philosophers started, coming up with what makes the world work. But some of them are more relevant today than others, or at different times, or in different situations, and these are the ones that are resonating for me at the moment.
Do you think that from the Torah and from the Jewish faith and tradition that there are things that we can all learn from?
Neither I nor my father were religious, but we both have very strong ethical core. And we both together talked about how the ethics of the religions are almost the same. The way and the dogma that is associated with them all is different. But what I have noticed about the Jewish community, synagogues are amazing.
They are.
They have a cultural outreach and a connection which wasn't my experience being brought up in the Church of England, you know, nominally or part of a congregation, but the way it's sort of connected in the synagogues that I've experienced has been astonishing. You know, when Pa was getting really towards the end of his life, around 105, he was living on his own. I moved in with him, but that the synagogue organised a rota of people to bring him supper.
Lovely.
And it was wonderful, you know, and he wasn't even a member of the synagogue, but they felt that it was part of their responsibility to look after their community, and he was included in their community. And that's what I mean, you know, why should social services have anything to do with it? Why shouldn't the community? That's my feeling, and so my experience of the Jewish culture has been very positive. I say I'm not religious, so I can't talk about the religion.
No, that's fascinating. So I think some of our the important things, either from our history or from things of faith, that teach us these things about being community together, the we, are actually very valuable, and it's important that we remember those, you know, key parts, I think.
Yeah, I mean, so much of religion is what, if you were creating a society and saying, but it's not a religious society, you would adopt it all. But for some reason I noticed that there's some lip service to it, but not always a lot of action.
So it's action or depth, basically.
Yeah.
That's an important thing, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Amazing. It's been amazing talking to you. Thank you so much.